Democrats. Today is Monday, March 11th, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Live. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. So there's a lot of things to talk about, but I'm going to sum it up by saying this, that I had the good fortune of spending time with the Attorney General for Minnesota, Keith Ellison. He was here on a Be the Response panel where we had some of our Oklahoma Democrats, elected Democrats, also participate on the panel. So I want to send a thank you to Senator Julia Kurt, Representative Amanda Swope, Representative Jason Lowe, and Representative Arturo Alonso Sandoval, who all participated in a well-attended and very inspiring panel about what it's like to run for office and what is important to them, what engages them. And one of the big things that I came away with as I listened to them, and I pride myself with knowing who our legislators are and what their issues are. But I heard Senator Julia Kurt from Oklahoma City, Senate District 30, talk about one of her passion issues. And one of her passion issues is housing, just plain old housing in Oklahoma, because folks need to have a roof over their heads. And we have an amazing issue, amazing, not in a good way, issue of folks experiencing homelessness. And she was talking about some of the things that the legislature is doing to address homelessness. And there are good things and there are bad things. I was debating on whether I would say not so good things, but there are bad things. One of the bad things is that there is legislation making its way. There's a bill making its way through the legislature that is about attacking homeless encampments, where you guys have seen them, where groups of unhoused folks kind of band together and make these little encampments where there are multiple folks who are there in support of one another, and it's usually near services and that kind of thing. And so there's legislation being pushed to criminalize that behavior, or to further criminalize that behavior in ways that make it harder for those folks to get a leg up. So I don't know what the answer is, but I just think that further criminalizing folks isn't going to all of a sudden house people, right? But there are other things like lengthening the time from being late on your rent to homelessness, right? Being late on your rent to eviction. And so I understand and respect that a landlord owns a property and has a contract where someone said that they were going to pay rent in order to stay there. But in our state right now, a person can miss their rent on the 1st and get a notice by the 8th that they have to be out by the 11th. That is just not enough time for someone to scramble up, and in most instances, not enough time for people to scramble up and pay back rent. But not only that, but it's also makes it difficult for that person to then find a place to live. And if you have an eviction and a near eviction, a recent eviction, it makes it harder to find a place to live. And so we have to figure out ways to respect and honor that landlords are people with rights as well, but there has to be some protections for tenants, because our laws really are skewed towards landlords. Landlords need to be paid, and landlords need to be paid on time. But there needs to be some stretch, because there are some folks, if given a little bit more time, could likely stay housed. But our system is set up to rapidly kick people out. And that's problematic. That's problematic. And so it's the criminalization of them. So I did a little research after listening to the senator talk, and I thought we have a long way to go. I also last week had an opportunity to hear one of the Democratic mayoral candidates from Tulsa speak on Friday evening, and that was Monroe Nichols, who was talking about his plan for reducing to near elimination by 2030 homelessness in Tulsa. And so homelessness has been on the mouths of a lot of our elected leaders and folks who are running for office, which tells you it is a big deal in our state. And so it just made me do a little bit of research to find out what's happening. And we don't have to have the level of homelessness that we have in our state. We don't. But it takes a will to come up with reasons, with solutions, resolutions to some of the problems that we have. And our current legislature it doesn't seem to have the will to want to help folks stay housed, want to help folks who are in trouble, which leads me to my next topic. So you guys have all heard that the governor is putting a lot of pressure on the legislature to do a big tax cut. Well, in Kansas and Wisconsin, those governors were doing the same thing. In Kansas and Wisconsin, the legislature was able to push back because they know, based on recent history, and Oklahoma has the same kind of recent history, that when we do the big tax cuts, that only help certain folks, it doesn't bode well for us as a state, that it comes back and we end up with holes in our budget. We end up with challenges. So I hope that our legislature is as successful as they were in Kansas and Wisconsin with regards to this tax cut that the governor is pushing. Not that I wouldn't want a tax cut, although I don't make enough that it would matter that much. But it needs to not create problems that are going to come back and smack me later. And everybody, except for the governor, is saying that that's what this tax cut would look like, is that would cause us problems that would smack us later. And then last thing I want to talk about is initiative petitions. So Oklahoma is fortunate in that we're one of the states that has initiative petition, or citizen-led legislation is what I call it, direct democracy, where citizens can get together, do the work, and get something on our ballot so that we can vote for it, even if our legislators don't carry the bill. So to me, that's great news. And each legislature keeps trying to figure out ways to chip away and take away that right. Or they do things like they did last week, where they passed a bill that just undid something that the citizens voted for. House Bill 780, which got to be a bill as a state question 780, that we got to vote on about criminal justice reform, moved it from and said a thing can't be a felony unless it's $1,000. Well, last week they said, no, it's a felony at $500. Well, that will increase the number of people who will be incarcerated. And in Oklahoma, we've actually been going down on our incarcerations. And it's because we reduced how long people were going to be incarcerated. Well, our legislature just undid that last week. And so there will be more people who will be going to prison as a result of that. And not just the fact that more people will be going to prison, but they undid the will of the people, which is problematic. Why am I talking about this? That's problematic. But secondly, the courts decided last week that the organization who is collecting signatures for raising minimum wage in our state can proceed with collecting signatures, direct democracy. They can proceed with collecting signatures. So you will see them out there, and they're talking about raising the minimum wage. It's not being run by the Democratic Party, but, we believe in folks being able to have a living wage. So if you see it, I'm encouraging you to sign it, but please understand that this is not being led by the party. This is a nonpartisan group who just realizes people need to make a real living. But I mention it because this is an opportunity for we, the people, to say to our legislature that we get that going, where are we now? 15 solid years without a raise in minimum wage is not reasonable. So let's just hope that passes and hope that our legislature doesn't try to undo it. It's a lot. It's a lot. Thank you for indulging me, and I will be back here tomorrow at 4:15. and I'm by myself today, so my production isn't as great.